Now to get on with the story, because you start off as Frank West, photojournalist, freelance, a guy who plays by his own rules and doesn't wait for the TV to tell him what to cover. He gets curious and gets a tip from someone that the town of Willamette is under something big and chooses to go on a daring quest. Now, the one thing I did have a problem with is in this story is it was super obvious that it was a zombie outbreak, but who would believe that zombies are a real thing, which really adds to the realism and human aspects of this element. So when he finally lands and finds out that he's dealing with zombies and the zombies are let into the mall, he realizes getting a gripping story is going to be a lot more work than it is, and it takes him on such a personal growth journey where you really don't know his motivations, but real situations bring out real people, and it really showed that when push comes to shove, Frank does have a moral compass. Frank does have a hero aspect to him. Now, he is rough around the edges, but let's be real, he will definitely help a stranded survivor if he needs to. And the way he reflects on the events is interesting because as you go around, you are hunting a man obviously known as Carlito by the green health meter, but the characters don't know a thing. Now, you team up with Brad and Jesse from Homeland Security who are here, and they only tell you a little bit by little bit as the story goes along, so you're left in the dark. And then down the line, after a second battle with Carlito, you go for a medicine run and meet Isabella after you finish off a psychopath who is guarding his store, as well as meeting Dr. Barnaby, who you also rescue, and then you eventually rescue Isabella after Carlito snaps on Isabella, and it brings you to a giant moment where you realize that Santa Cabeza was a town where the U.S. conducted a experiment that ended up accidentally creating zombies when they were trying to mass produce cattle for Americans to consume. The text based on American consumerism and how the world around it really has to pay for how much we eat and consume really drove Carlito's motivations. But instead of sending help, the U.S. government ended up using the army to slaughter the entire village, human and zombie alike, Carlito and Isabella being the sole survivor. And Carlito is angry at the government who had taken his happiness from him as a kid. So his motivations are very understandable, not justified to bring out two wrongs, but this guy, you actually understand why he has such a vengeful heart. It hits even harder down the line once you realize, like Isabella says, all that Carlito ever wanted to do was live in peace in Santa Cabeza. But after the big reveal of the truth, Carlito ends up planting bombs underneath the Willamette Mall, and it's a race against the clock to get them out before they send parasitic larvae into the world and make sure that the zombies are a worldwide phenomenon. But as you destroy the bombs and make sure that nothing happens, and I like this moment just because it's an adrenaline pump and knowing the stakes are so high, meaning you could get an ending that just is a result where everybody just ends up dying in this game if you do not complete this task on time. But once you do, you get a cutscene where Brad is kicked into the maintenance tunnel and then he is eaten alive by zombies. There's even an optional cutscene where you go and find him and he is zombified and you have to take him out. But then you come back, you talk to Isabella, she brings you to the hideout. You guys find out that Carlito has been kidnapped by a butcher in the maintenance tunnels while he was trying to escape. But Isabella needs a password for the jamming device that is keeping everybody from reaching out of the mall. The way they built this jamming device into the final fax case was really smart on their part. I enjoyed how everything played out by the end of it. Like, every case has a trigger moment which propels the story in a different direction. So if you want to quit the cases midway through and focus on killing zombies, or if you want to continue and then have the circumstances and the stakes and the environment raised, this is just an amazing stakes to the game. But after you get the locket from Carlito before he passes away, he brings it to Isabella, or you do, on his behalf, and she realizes the password, takes out the jamming device, but upon contacting the United States government, the government decides to cover this up as well. So you have to rush over to your hideout, see that Jesse is infected, and ends up killing 2 army men, and then you have to get to Isabella's hideout, because when the special forces arrive, especially in 72-hour mode, they do not play around. They are very active, and they are doing their jobs. Now, there are cult leaders and cult members for the apocalypse, which show up earlier in this game, but those are small potatoes to the special forces, and it even added an element to urgency and fear that was not the zombies, because you always think the zombies are the main source of fear, but when the special forces show up in this game, it is heart-pounding. These guys can ruin your day if you are not prepared. But you hide overnight and let the special forces clean up the mall, and then you get out of there in the morning, where Isabella says, you go ahead, I'll stay behind here. So you go to the helipad, where you wait for the helicopter to come, but a zombie is on board who bites the pilot of the helicopter, and then the helicopter ends up crashing, leaving Frank with no means of escape and no means of hope. He has given up and actually gets infected, only for Isabella to save him very soon. It was a Deus Ex moment, but Isabella rescues you, brings you back, lets you know that you have been infected with the zombie virus. So you spend overtime mode collecting collectibles to make a temporary antidote, where you also learn that other orphans were given a similar dosage of this drug, and that the bad news is the entire country just might be crawling with zombies and you might not even know. So the lack of knowledge on what is actually going on outside of the mall is dawning on you, which still keeps that pressed urgency of the game and the storyline investing into the player. But upon gathering Queen Bees, you and Isabella realize you guys have one way of getting out of there, and that's through the tunnel that was created with the crashed helicopter. Now, I actually liked that tunnel scene. You had a pheromone that knocked down zombies just so you could kind of walk through. It was different. It added an actual horror element to the story. And then you have one final battle with the tank, aka the Special Forces leader. And remember when I said that the psychopaths are all psychopaths? This guy is actually evil. Meaning the boss battle with this guy is a force to be reckoned with. So I don't fight him fair. I hop down the tank, let him hop down, and then I kick him in the face, rinse and repeat until he's done. Because if you try to face this guy in a fair fight, he will destroy you. The way they maxed out this guy's difficulty on the game is unbelievable. But it is a hand-to-hand fight. There are no weapons, no revives, no food around. And if you get knocked into the zombie pit, you are pretty much done, because you need to keep your health at full max capacity in order to feel comfortable fighting this guy. But after you vanquish Brock, there's a moment where Frank West screams into the sky, because once again, he is cornered and cannot get out. But after the credits roll, you understand that he has gotten out. But the problem is, and the irony behind it, the American public has let the zombie infection fade from their minds, and things went back to business as usual, which highlights how society responds to giant sensational stories on the news. But this story also plays into themes of media and how things are portrayed, what actually happened versus how it's pasted on the news, how the society reacts to news that doesn't go along with what their society tells them, especially when Frank learns the truth about Santa Cabeza. He is forced to look at his society and his media a different way, and if he's going to give up on the story altogether, or he's going to go through and still try and do the right thing. Which made Frank West such a great character, a great hero, because the guy never gave up on his mission. Even though there was selfish incentive, there was a lot more hanging on it than just his reputation. There was the truth about what had happened and the truth about what the U.S. government had done to Santa Cabeza. But would the people care? I think that was out of his control, and he just went with it. The way that the members of the United States in this game were forced to view their society after learning the truth, the interactions of Carlito and Isabella, and the anger that comes from a very justifiable source when you realize that they lost their lives because of something that was out of their control. And learning that the scientist was the head of all this was just the cherry on top. This story is so gripping, and I think it's underappreciated because when you play this game, you just want to see the carnage, that you actually miss out on a deep, well thought out, well written story. But overall, that's what made this game so great. It wasn't perfect, it had clunky gameplay at times, but the writing of it was so amazing. The way, the urgency that you can choose, the options that you have for endings just made this a very rubber and very realistic feeling game that had a lot of excitement, whether you were putting it on yourself or you were just goofing off. A lot of the side activities are also fun if you just want to go around and mutilate zombies and then wait for the 3 days to be up so you can get your ride out and go home. But it will always have such a special place in my heart because as a kid, I never thought that a story could be so deep, so optional. And as a young child, it felt like it was a very isolated incident. I was the only one who really was gripped by this story, whereas a lot of other people missed out on it or just wanted to play the game for fun. But overall, I gave this game a solid 8 out of 10. But what were your thoughts? Did you like this game? Was it memorable to you? Did I miss anything? Please add to the conversation if you choose to watch this video. But I will definitely see you on the next one. Peace out.